Welcome to the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition podcast. This is U.S. Political Prisoners and You. We on Black Power Media. We on Facebook, and we on NEPPC YouTube channel. Please, if you first time coming on, please hit like, please share with as many people as possible. I'm with my brother, my aunt, my elder, my comrade, Ashanti. What's going on, my brother? Peace and love to you, brother.
All power to the people. It's good to see you again, Brother Frank.
Likewise, I just want you to reintroduce yourself for anybody who may not be familiar with who you are, just so we keep people informed about who did what, when, and why, and who continues to fight for our liberation.
Right on. Right. My name is Ashanti Alston. I'm a former member of the Black Panther Party, primarily out of New Jersey, and later the Harlem office, and also was a soldier in the Black Liberation Army, former political prisoner. Presently, I live in Rhode Island. So I'm happy to be here on the advisory board of the National Jericho Movement for the freedom of all political prisoners, and always a Panther. Right on.
My brother, this interview or discussion was supposed to be scheduled before, but unfortunately we had some technical difficulties. But even though Martin Luther King's birthday was January 15th, and then the nation recognized, the United States recognized it on the 19th, and today is the 21st, we still have an opportunity to talk about him, because it's not waiting one particular time to talk about him, but it's to talk about him ongoing, because of what he stood for, principle, and the fact that he was a former political prisoner. And that being said, I always have questions for people who come on, because I like to spark that knowledge in all of us, including myself. So my first question to my brother, my comrade, is why is it that we seldom hear Martin Luther King Jr. referred to as a political prisoner?
Well, it all goes back to us being in this situation in the United States and what's called the Americas, as being the people who were conquered and brought here on slave ships. And I gotta bring it like that, because from that moment that we're here, it's we're no longer those Africans from them villages or them nations there. We're now, enslaved. And everything that this white supremacist empire does is to whitewash. It's to whitewash our meaning, our histories, and stuff like that. So of course they're going to do that with any freedom fighter. So we talking about Martin Luther King. Why is it important? He stood up. Doesn't matter that he was fighting in a nonviolent way. He was consistently dedicated to our total liberation as best he understood. So when you look at how many times he was political prisoners, you're talking about dozens or maybe 20, 30 times the man is locked up and released. And every time the media and all of them will call him a criminal, a hoodlum, a jailbird. Very similar to what they did with the Panther Party, Black Panther Party. Same thing, how they would refer to us. But it's important to understand that this is what we face when we stand up to this monster. That generations, every time we get someone who stands up, or groups or movements, for Marcus Garvey to others, that we are criminalized, that we are going to be categorized in a way that is going to hopefully make the empire's population be anti us, help suppress us. So, here we go. Martin Luther King, the Prince of Peace, the same thing is happening to him, but it's all around crushing our desire to be free. And like what he said, to be continuously rebellious and outlawish, break the law if necessary. That is Martin Luther King. So why wouldn't they continue to distort it? We need to continually give people a more accurate, truthful picture of him, because this is what we need in these crazy times that we live in today.
Absolutely. Yeah, because we talk about Martin, we definitely want to let people know that he was a martyr, he was a political prisoner, And when we do that, we're raising awareness about current political prisoners, people like Mumia Abu-Jamal, people like Ronald Reed, people like Joseph Bowen, people like Kenny Zulu Whitmore, who has written an open letter to the community. And if you don't have it, I'll make a way of getting it to you if I don't get it to you today. That's why I give you my contact information at 347-679-396, because we got to make sure that we have ongoing dialogue with our political prisoners. And that's why when Martin Luther King wrote that letter from Selma, it was very important. It was raising people's consciousness, and he was critiquing people who were supposed to be involved and were not involved. And the political prison now can do the same thing with these open letters, letting people know that they're sitting in prison because they made commitments, because they made sacrifices. What are you doing to freedom? Are you involved in something? Are you making time to even write them? A number of questions, and that need to be answered. My next question is, what impact would Martin Luther King Jr. being identified as a political prisoner have on the work to free U.S. held political prisoners?
One, it would be constantly confronting this not so new fascism. They're saying the word fascism now like it's something new, but it's like, if fascism is around how to suppress a people, how to silence people, how to criminalize people, how to imprison and kill people, then this fascism is just the same old fascism, but maybe taking different forms. So Martin Luther King's, just the fact that he kept speaking would just keep raising awareness about, this is the United States, the most militarized, oppressive nation in the world. If you're going to take it on, you must accept the dangerousness of that, taking this system on. You must accept it's going to make you vulnerable as being this revolutionary, So the impact of the political prisoner, even for him, was to say, don't let that discourage you. Make that help you move forward. Make that deepen your work in the community. And you'll see, like, all of that was happening all during that civil rights movement that folks like him was in charge of. The organizing deepened. The participation that it was bringing in deepened. And it wasn't just like folks coming in from different parts of the country, young folks, white folks, Latino folks, Black folks, students, or whatever, coming to the South to help organize. But they was also organizing the kids, the youth, to take steps forward, to even risk being jailed. That was a hell of a thing. But so his thing would show the importance of supporting political prisoners, because those are the ones who are taking risk. And if we understand it, even those like him and his movement, the civil rights movement, that was really locked into, for the most part, a nonviolent approach, not all, because we talk about SNCC, Student Nonviolent Organizing Committee, that became the Student National, and became more radicalized and less and less hooked to the nonviolent approach. Still, it brings into the importance that we're going to fight, we're going to have comrades captured, and we must always have things in place, organizations and activities that's going to help bring them out of the dungeons. All that is very important. And it could be the cultural poets. It could be the safe house operators, all kind of folks. And we got to be prepared. So the political prisoner is just an indication of the viciousness of the system, but still our conviction that we have to still take it on. That becomes very important. And so his role and our role in the continually bringing up Martin Luther King as political prisoner makes a lot of our works more understandable about what we're facing now, because we're getting ready to get a whole new slew of political prisoners. But it should not discourage us. It should deepen our commitment to keep fighting.
Absolutely. He was a man of principle, and he understood the sacrifices that he had to make. And just every time we hear his name and hear him being identified with that political prisoner, that would raise awareness about our current political prisoners. And now have people ask themselves, what's my position in relation to that? I had participated in one of the day in the March for Mayor, which I thought that was incredible, and it made me think about the marches that Reverend Dr. King was a part of, and the importance of that, how marches transform people, and how marches start to help people understand that, there's an idea that you need to relate to concretely, an idea that you can't afford to ignore, the idea being that there are U.S. held political prisoners. My next question: what would Martin Luther King Jr.'s position be around the question of U.S. held political prisoners?
I think what it challenges us to do, especially those of us who still work around the freedom of political prisoners and building the organizations to continually prepare for a new generation of political prisoners, is to understand that in our community, we still got to have the dialogue with folks who have been so divorced from struggle for so long now that they may not really understand why we're raising up this issue of political prisoners. You mentioned the Birmingham jail letter. Excuse me. The importance of that letter was even Martin Luther King sitting in jail got to write a letter to these Christian religious leaders telling them that they need to just honor their own biblical documents that says Jesus was a revolutionary, that they were opposing the Roman emperors, that they cannot sit back in their churches and do nothing and criticize him, that they should be joining him. And that calls for that kind of engagement with those who might have to be challenged in ways that gets them to see that they have accepted the bullshit that the government and the mass medias have been entrenching us with for so long. Martin Luther King would also make us understand law breaking, because he was one who always said we have to be willing to break the law. That gets us out of thinking that this struggle for liberation and this struggle for revolution can be done in some unique American nonviolent way in the most violent empire ever. But still, he was willing to take that on, even at the risk of his own death. And I think what's important too is even with him having to live with knowing his encouragement was bringing more people into the revolution at a higher risk of their own death. That's a heavy thing for a leader to even have to live with. But it's knowing that for this cause, this is a necessary thing to do. That involves keeping the faith. That involves understanding what that means. We got political prisoners that come from all different walks of life. It means that we have to understand that our embracing of political prisoners means also embracing those who have been labeled dangerous: Muslims, Arabs, indigenous folks, brown folks, black folks. We see that all in the streets now with ICE. What does that mean to keep the faith, and even embracing those who may not have our same political or religious beliefs or practices? And so the bottom line with all of that is understand that we're still in this struggle. We got to believe that we can win, keep that kind of faith, and support those organizations that have been doing work around political prisoners so that we can kind of learn from them how to do this work. That doesn't mean that we're going to keep reinventing the wheel when we got others that are doing the work. So, like the National Jericho Movement, like the Northeast Political Prisoner Organization, like HOLLA, like the work that Malcolm X Grassroots Movement is doing, or Black Alliance for Peace and other organizations are doing, the Anarchist Black Cross. We are facing one of the most crazy periods in our history. And so it means that we have got to prepare that aspect of what happens when the system is going to start snatching us up off the streets and putting us in prisons that could land us somewhere in South America, that could land us somewhere in some African prison that is under the heel of the US empire. We got to learn how to be there for that aspect of struggle, to be able to bring people back, or to show that we got your back. Then we know that we continue to struggle. You know, as we say, victory is ours. What they would say in some of the struggles, a luta continua, the struggle continues, but victory is ours. Martin Luther King was that. Doesn't matter they assassinated him. Doesn't matter that they assassinated Fred Hampton and so many other Panthers and others, is that we carry this struggle on. So that's why I appreciate even the work that you do, you know, and other younger generations isn't carrying this struggle on.
Absolutely. We salute you and we honor you. And it's always important that we show you that we are committed to doing this work, and we're making an attempt to do this work, because anybody could say that they respect you and honor you, but what are their actions showing? If they ain't out there organizing, if they ain't out there actually trying to do some type of work, then, you know, it doesn't really mean nothing. It's sympathy as opposed to solidarity. And I think that when we talk about Martin Luther King, we need to be very respectful and show solidarity, commit ourselves, carry on his work, looking at what he did, and you know, doing what we need to do in terms of carrying those ideas forward, because we know that he marched, we know that he brought people together, you know, he had the ability to organize people. And I think that in 2026 he would have did the same thing around political prisoners. I know that he would have had demonstrations at specific areas to gain enough attention around political prisoners, because he understood what it is to make those sacrifices, to be in that predicament, and to you know, the importance to continue to be heard.
Right.
Is what strategies and tactics would Martin Luther King Jr. use in the fight to free U.S. held political prisoners? I probably in 2026, I probably gave you something when I speak. Yeah, that was the question I had for you about the strategy and tactics that Martin Luther King will use in 2026.
Yeah.
What you think he?
Well, one is to continue to support the political prisoner organizations and the work that they already are doing. That is like very important. Consider the importance of even Martin Luther King as a thinker, always evolving like a Malcolm X, and what the demands are of our struggle. It means that we always got to continue to evolve in our thinkings and our strategies and tactics in confronting this monster. And what kind of future do we want? What is our end goals? I think it would be important to like understand that Martin, Malcolm, and others had a spiritual base, and that was that faith thing that kept them going. And I think in that is understanding that if you're doing political prisoner work, it is the most difficult work, I believe, that is done in the movement, because it's the work that gets the least victories. Because sometimes we are working, get comrades out, not after 10 years, 20, 30, 40, but after 50 years in prison with not a lot of victories. It means you got to have somewhere within you as a person that says, I still got to do it. That still got to do it spirit is that also that revolutionary spirit that got to be infused in all of our movements as a whole, that's going to make us get up every morning and knowing that we're going to participate in a struggle that's going to ultimately take us to victory. It is just very important. With that, I think even those political prisoners inside who've been in prison for long periods of time, that they can even embrace the eventuality or possibility that they may die in there, knowing that those who are struggling on the outside are struggling to our ultimate goal. So with that, I want to say, like, we got to continue the work, unite different organizations, support the work of the political prisoner organizations that I had mentioned, and I'm sure that there's others, and continue to have faith that the struggle we in, we can eventually win, even if from one generation to the next.
Wow, you said that the political organizing for the freedom of our political prisoners received the least victories, or it's very difficult for us to bring home. And when you said that, it made me think about being a principle based, right? We're the people to stand up, to fight back, to commit themselves to organized action. And what are we doing when they are in prison? Are we forgetting them? Are we ignoring them? And Mumia, he was real young when he committed himself to the Black Panther Party, and so was Jalil. And Mumia is still in prison, but Jalil came home, did over 50 years in prison, but he didn't die in prison, and he came home and he's still doing the work. And I know that it was because of people not giving up on him, people writing him, people organizing to bring him home, because the state don't want people like him to come home, and the state don't want me to come home, because these people are threats to the state, because they are exposing the state. They are bringing their people truth, and they're letting our people know that you either can accept what's going on or organize and do something about it. So what I want to do now is I want to go to a couple of quotes from Martin Luther King, and I just want to get what comes to mind when you hear these quotes, because that's what I think people need to start to do. When they start quoting Martin Luther King, they should internalize it and directly relate it to what they're currently doing politically. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends.
Say that again.
In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends.
Right on. Right on. And I think that's part of the Birmingham letter too. It's like we have to be constantly reminded of, why are we doing this? Where is our strength come from? Where is our guiding lights coming from? And do we really believe in them guiding lights that's within us, the wisdoms that we've come to take on that makes us who we are? You either going to own up to them and be that, or you're going to slink into that state of submissiveness. We have got to rise up to them lights that move us forward with a sense of confidence.
There's absolutely, when I listen to that quote and I hear it, I start thinking about the statements that people make when they talk about they respect the Panthers, then they respect the Black Liberation Army, and it's a statement that they say, but they really mean it, right? They support the causes of the party. Right? When I say that, I mean, when we look at the political prisoners and the political prisoner is still in prison, are they writing to a political prisoner? Are they showing a level of support, donating to an organization? Are they making time to learn about political prisoners? I think that comes in mind for me anyway when it says about the silence of your friends, because your actions take your voice, right? Whether you are silent on something or you actually are speaking on something.
Right, and that's why I say, yes, it's like you have a sense of why you're doing this, and sometimes it could be you're writing a political prisoner, and that political prisoner is actually helping you to come more in terms of what new beliefs you have taken on, especially when they're revolutionary beliefs. It's like you finding that that's what you say you want to be about. Now you're going to learn how to be that, and hopefully have the courage to move towards that direction. And a lot of times the political prisoners are the ones that help you do it. You think you're going to visit them to give them support, and a lot of times sitting in that visiting room, they give you more of a reason to come into the fullness of your very own beliefs. And it's a miraculous thing, but it's some of the magic of even writing, of visiting, supporting the political prisoners.
Oh wow, that's deep. I never thought about that being so powerful, an actual visit,
Mhm.
and you thinking that you're supporting them, but they are raising your consciousness further. Yeah, that's
Further,
very powerful. And I'm
right?
waiting on a particular visit for a political prisoner, but I'll deal with that when it happens, and then I can share it with the viewers. Just anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere.
Okay, say that again. You broke up.
I'm sorry, brother. It says injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
Yes, yes. Okay, now like that is understand that it can be small injustices as well as big injustices. It can be like what happened with George Floyd, or it can be just you in your life. You're hopping on that subway and you're encountering some kind of engagement with the police or something over something minor, but it's disrespectful. This is a Martin Sostry thing too. Like even the smallest injustice has to be acknowledged, that it all is one injustice that we have got to see brings us all together. So you know that it's you personally, as well as your commitment to that larger picture of not only injustice but liberation. That becomes very, very important. So don't dismiss the minor injustices. The minor ones have to do with what brings you in here. So you're not just doing this for someone else. You are a co-conspirator, is one of the terms that they use now in this liberation revolution process. Your own reasons for wanting to be free, as well as the collective reasons that bring so many of our different communities together.
Yes, yes, yeah. That is one of the most famous sayings that he had, and I mean, most famous quotes. I think that it's important, it's powerful because it directly, for me, connects to accountability. Right? How you relate to injustice. Are you on the sidelines just watching it happen, or you are engaging, confronting it? And I think that we need to ask ourselves at what level, what is our capacity to confront injustice, and we need to take a definitive position when it comes to that. Because if we don't, then that injustice, it's a cancer. It carries on. It affects other people, and then it gets totally out of control. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy.
Right on. I remember hearing that quote, and the only thing I would say about it is that you to understand it in the context of it said. So I wouldn't necessarily say man. I would say human being, right? So then we can understand again, how does it impact a human being in a way that brings you into an awareness of why you should be in this struggle. So in that sense, and it's like what we were talking about, Frank, a little bit earlier about we was talking about my general, but it's like there's so many people in this movement. We are a very diverse movement, and people come from all kinds of different places. What makes a human being? And they could come from a different ethnic community, they could come from a different sexual community, they could come from a different language speaking community. a community of different abilities. A lot of times we forget that there's those with disabilities. But what makes us human in this era, you know, and I think the importance of it is this, that we're living in a world now where the technology is affecting us in ways that if we don't consider what it means to be human today, that is so different from 100, 200, 300 years ago, then then we're lacking somewhere. So how do we embrace all of our diversity? And I learned this from the Zapatistas as well, because they said it's a world where many worlds exist. So when we look at our different peoples, regardless of where they come from, and this was Panthers too, that we were able to embrace many, many different communities as well as our own in this struggle. What does it mean to be a human being today? So we would get rid of, like, we understand like the language then is just man, but human being today means that we're talking about a diversity that is like very beautiful. And our liberation can be just as beautiful. And it does not nullify our specific needs for Black liberation, our specific need for a Black revolution that deals with the uniqueness of how we got in this empire that was not a voluntary choice. The possibilities is there. And I think that's what gets us back to all power to the people, embracing all that we can, but also being willing to accept that they're going to come for us. They're going to try to capture us, hurt us, discourage us, corral us, kill us. But we can still overcome it all because, as Huey P. Newton said, the spirit of the people is greater than this empire's technology. So that's where I kind of went off, but like I'm always inspired by that particular quotation.
I know when I hear that quote, I think about Mumia. Mumia wrote a number of books while he's in prison. You know, it made him stronger, right? Of course, he wants to be home with his families, his community, his loved ones.
Right.
Live King, and made him stronger. Of course, he wanted to be in prison all year while he was dead. You know, he didn't get beat down by the system, but he understood that he had more work to do. He had to expose the system more. He had to raise the consciousness of other prisoners to make sure that they understood what was happening to them and why it was happening. So when I hear that quote, those are two brothers I think about. But you know, brother, this episode come to an end. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your commitment to doing this, because last time we didn't get right, but we came back and we resolved the issue. I'm looking forward to talking to you again on this platform. And thank you, my brother. And let's stay in touch and let's continue to fight for our political prisoners.
Right.
You got any words?
Comrade, that is very mutual. I thank you for that you're carrying this on and that you and others are doing this. This is what makes this revolution possible. This is what makes it really feel like we're going to do this from one generation to the next. So thank you. We're going to do this together, as always. Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Right on.